pictures out here this year, apparently.
No, it's over there.
Okay. What is this? That's good. Thanks, sir.
Oh.
Don't you have to keep your finger on that all the time?
No, I don't think so.
Good luck.
Morning, Zach.
Warren, how are you?
Morning, Zach.
Warren,
How are you, buddy?
good.
Forever. Morning, Zach.
Warren.
Good morning. You get it? Wow.
Yep.
This is. Hey, Zach, are you? How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Fine, thanks. This is the.
We got you up close.
You sure do. Way too close and way too personal. Is it picking up sounds too?
Oh, yeah. Morning.
It's picking up sounds.
Good, nice to see you. Good.
Careful. You're under surveillance.
What's that? I am?
Oh, I'm taking. Just click that off. And I'll come out.
And there was an article in the Wall Street Journal a month or two ago about a 3-hour football game. You actually have about 11 minutes of actual play. And 60 minutes of players going around the refs.
I think this is going to be chaos once the food starts coming. So anyway, welcome to a historic event. This is the largest group of Castalia fishermen ever to grace this dining room in the history of the club. Wow. And you've all got a glass of champagne in front of you, I think.
Oh, look at that.
Wow. Toast. To the Castalia Club, great members, great friends, and great fish.
Cheers.
I usually start my day.
Yes.
1, 2,
The button's up
3.
front.
Where? I get it.
We're in trouble. That was impressive.
2, 3. One more.
Take a few more.
All right. 1, 2, 3.
How about one for each?
1, 2, 3.
I suspect that many photos have been taken on these same steps. This one, called a birthday celebration, was most likely to honor a long-standing club president, John Zollinger, who served from 1886 to 1922. Castalia is a small village in northern Ohio, lying about 6 miles southwest of Sandusky, 67 miles west of Cleveland, 56 miles east of Toledo, and 108 miles north of Columbus. Cold Creek, upon which the club resides, loops northeasterly for 6 miles to enter Sandusky Bay at the old village of Venice, Ohio. This 1876 map of Cold Creek was made 8 years after trout were first introduced to the stream and 3 years before the founding of the Trout Club. The earliest pioneers settled around one of the ponds that was fed by very large springs. They created the village of Castalia. The most important unique feature about this spring's water was that it retained its temperature year-round. It never froze in winter, and stayed cold in summer. It was called Cold Creek. A high-flowing stream that never froze led to the building of many water-powered mills of different kinds. One was built at the outflow from the Castalia Pond, and by 1820, a higher mill dam was built, causing the water level in the pond to rise. The resulting increased water pressure down to the aquifer caused a new high-volume spring to emerge about 1/2 mile north of the dam. This spring soon collapsed into what would eventually be a deep blue-colored hole. The water that emerged from the blue hole did not feed back into the Cold Creek stream bed, but created a wetlands as the land filled with water. The resulting decrease in Cold Creek flow created problems for the mills down toward Venice. It is most likely for this reason that in the 1830s R.H. Haywood invested $60,000 to purchase all of the land through which Coldstream flowed and set about to harness the stream's power. The outflow from the upper pond was rerouted to a point near the Blue Hole, and a channel built to carry the combined waters to join Cold Creek a little over 1/2 mile north of the Blue Hole, now the race at Castalia Trout Club. Another even longer channel was created to carry water northeasterly towards Venice. In addition to providing maximum flow to the mills, the channeling had a secondary effect of draining some of the wetlands, creating additional acres for farm production. Haywood went bankrupt. In 1839, the water flowing from the Blue Hole was dammed up, and a mill, along with the mill pond, was built where the two railroad tracks crossed Cold Creek, just below the Blue Hole. It was destroyed by fire in 1874 and rebuilt as a grist mill by the Castalia Milling Company. In 1868, the owner of the paper mill sought the advice of two Cleveland physicians, one of whom had published a book 10 years earlier, a treatise on the artificial propagation of fish with a description and habits of such kinds as are most suitable for pisciculture. Also, directions for the most successful modes of angling for such kinds of fish as are herein described. Theodatus Garlick, he was vice president of the Cleveland Academy of Natural Sciences, showed how fish hatched from eggs, how to construct ponds, and in particular, how to raise brook trout, his favorite. By 1873, some imported brook trout eggs were successfully hatched and soon found their way into the race, where they survived and grew in size. The cold, constant temperature and swift flow of the water, now oxygenated after falling over mill dams, proved to be an ideal environment for the brook trout. The word went out, and soon fishermen from northeast Ohio converged on Castalia to fish for trout. It was not long before two fishing clubs were established. The first, the Lower Club, in 1878 as the Castalia Sporting Club. The Upper Club, our club, was founded in 1879 as the Cold Creek Trout Club Company. They leased the property controlled by the Castalia Milling Company, all of the springs, the connecting channels, and the race, holding sole fishing privileges and the right to propagate fish. The same year, they built a small clubhouse along the race. In 1886, the club issued capital stock of $30,000 and incorporated a new club, the Cold Creek Sporting Club Company, with 12 members. The first president was Jeremiah Atwater. Using $20,000, they bought the entire plant, property, and water rights of the milling company. The corporate name was changed to the Castalia Trout Club Company in 1890. In the first year after purchasing the property, the pond above the Blue Hole was modified to create a new outer stream, 6/10 of a mile in length. In 1889, the club purchased a 56-acre plot of land, the Meadows, north and east of the two railroad tracks and the race. The meadow or lower stream was constructed. A 7-foot-high dam was placed just north of the railroad tracks to divert water into the newly formed stream. It was called the most crooked water course in existence, and many of its bends and stretches have been named for some of the early members. John Zollinger of Zollinger's Pool, John Sweeney of Sweeney's Section, Frank Beebe of Beebe's Delight, Andrew of Andrew's Favorite, Joseph Ingersoll of Ingersoll's Walk, and many others. Its construction caused great concern for members of the lower club, whose land adjoined ours at the end of the race. They thought that this 3.8 miles of additional stream would result in the warming of the stream to the detriment of their fish. They set about to acquire more cold water for themselves by drilling down to the aquifer and created another high-flow spring on their property which gushed forth with such volume that a temporary lowering of the water levels in the Blue Hole took place. Their intentions to create yet another spring were thwarted by legal action taken by the Cold Creek Trout Club, a process that continued for several years. In 1891, the 1-mile-long Blue Stream was constructed by diverting water from the outer stream and the Blue Hole southward via the straight stretch and then back to the mill pond through a series of bends. All of these stream segments above the Blue Hole are currently referred to as the upper stream. By this time, the fame of Cold Creek as a trout stream had spread far and wide. Articles in Forest and Stream magazine in May of 1891 extolled its merits, in addition to supporting the growth of brook trout. Certain it is that there hardly exists in the whole settled portion of our country a stream more unique, more mysterious, or more interesting from a dozen points of view. The club streams are constantly being modified. For example, in 1922, 62 stone riffles and 15 riffle dams were built. Ducks caused one significant and expensive improvement. The introduction of the mechanical corn picker in the late 1940s led to a large number of waterfowl remaining over the winter, living in the many marshes that line the Lake Erie shore. During a hard winter when the marshes froze, the waterfowl assembled by the thousands on free-flowing Cold Creek. The resulting loss of vegetation led to the erosion of the stream banks, stream widening, and the creation of shallow segments. The problem was solved by lining the banks with rocks and dredging several stream segments. In 1989, the total cost of repairing the duck damage exceeded $125,000. Cold Creek's special feature of remaining unfrozen in winter creates issues to this day. In a recent cold stretch when Lake Erie froze, as many as 27 bald eagles converged on our nursery segment, which had become their buffet. The first fish released into the streams in 1868 were brook trout. Rainbows and browns were introduced in 1891. In 1960, the club successfully crossed brook and brown trout to form the tiger trout, but they are no longer found in the stream. The first clubhouse was replaced by the present one in 1894. That is Jeremiah Atwater, the club's first president, standing next to the mill pond in this view. The tackle and locker room was added in 1906. The fish cleaning room in 1952. The squaw camp was built in the late 1800s and has been gradually enlarged and remodeled ever since. The Blue Hole has been important to the club in many ways since its emergence in 1820. In addition to its unusual physical features displayed at different times of the day, it turns quite blue at times. Legends grew about the spring, all untrue, like no bottom for it and so forth. and visitors started to arrive to see this wondrous spring. Once the automobile became popular, it became somewhat of a problem as the number of visitors increased. In 1925, it was decided to start charging admission to both control access and to create a cash flow necessary to clean up after so many visitors. A nice entrance, walkways to the hole, educational exhibits like the water wheel, raised platforms for viewing the spring, the concession stand selling popcorn. Visitors could then feed the trout in the mill pond, or rather, the popcorn hole. The Blue Hole grounds were closed for business in the late 1980s. Just hold them up. Let me see how.